Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to take a look at small item storage. So this will cover things like notions and small sewing tool essentials. I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done to organize what I have, and hopefully that will inspire you or give you ideas on how to optimize the spaces and containers that you have for your own sewing needs. Here's a mix of items that I like to have next to my sewing machine, close to me when I'm sewing. So you can see I have this spread out on the counter, and I'm just going to show you a quick example of how I have this organized in a drawer unit that's right next to my sewing machine. You might want to have a small selection of items like hook and loop tape, extra pins, snaps, fray check, things that you might use frequently and you want to have them close to you while you're sewing. And then the majority of the rest of the item or the bulk amount that you have is stored in another location. This is the top drawer in my filing cabinet, and it's right next to my sewing station. So I'm going to organize this drawer right here at the top to fit all the pieces that I had sitting up on the counter. So you can see this is just a standard drawer. It's white, it's pretty plain, but it's cleaned out and ready to go. So for the first step, I'm actually gonna take a piece of contact paper. It's sticky drawer liner, and I have this cut to fit right down into the bottom of my drawer, and that just adds a little bit of pop. It's a nice way to pull open the drawer, and it just makes you smile a little bit when you're starting your project or when you're working on your project. All right, so here you can see we have this stuck down. It looks great. Now I'm going to work to bring in all of my supplies to fit nicely in this drawer. My drawer measures 16.5 by 13, and it is 4 inches deep. Now I have these small white baskets that we've picked up. I believe they were 4 together in the dollar section, very inexpensive. They're 10 inches long by 3 inches wide, and they're 2.5 inches tall. So I can take a bunch of these and then configure them in the drawer in the best way that works for the supplies that I want to store. So I could put them side by side, I could stack them in a row this way and leave space open for larger items that wouldn't fit in the basket, but it gives me a lot to play around with. Now here is the configuration that I've settled on for this drawer. I'm going to take some of my larger items when I'm cleaning up and I don't want to leave them sitting out on my sewing table, and I'll keep those down here. Then for the smaller items that I like to have next to me, could be the scissors. I like to have small amounts of little items like hooks, snaps. I also like to have tags close by so I can just grab those to sew those into items that I'm making, and I just have them stored in a pin container that I'm no longer using because I have the pins on my magnet pin cushion. So I can use a small container like this to store little items, and it keeps them nice and clean in these little containers. It's also great to have hand sewing needles, your small rolls of quilter's tape. I have both 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch. I can also have a large pair of scissors in one of these baskets. A seam gauge is also good to have close by. And I can use the baskets to keep things separated but grouped in batches for how they go together. I also could have larger presser feet all in one container. And if you have more than one sewing machine, you could have one basket per machine if it's a different brand and they use different add-on accessories. I also use my sewing desk for computer-related activities. I'm doing a lot of video and photo editing, so I have a lot of electronic type cords and gadgets and memory cards, things like that. So I would also keep those close by, so they're right next to my desk. Now I have moved those other little sewing items into the first basket. I've put them all together because for me, one of the things I like to have close by me while I'm working is Post-it notes and office supplies. I'm sort of a Post-it note nut. I like to stick Post-it notes on everything. It helps to keep me from getting sidetracked. I'm usually working on a lot of things at the same time, so Post-its are helpful. I also have washi tape and other office-related filing little tabs for some of my pattern file folders and stuff like that, and I'll keep that all right next to me in this same drawer. I can also store my bobbin cases in the back section. Then I also have room in this drawer to keep essential parts for my machine that come in small bags. Extra pieces like machine oil and the tools that come with operating it. That can all fit right in the back, and then I know where it is when I need it and it's close by. So this is just one example of some of the items that you might want to have close to you when you're sewing and a way to organize a drawer. Okay, now let's switch it up and say you wanted to use your drawer and these types of baskets to just do notions. So we're looking at things like hook and loop tape, and we have several colors of those, and we can just set those all here as what we have in the back. And if we wanted to have smaller leftover pieces up front, we could have them in a basket ready to use. Then you might want to bring in your buttons, and you can have buttons in little boxes or lots of buttons divided into little bags, and you could have all of your buttons in one basket ready to access at any time, but grouped together nicely. You could bring in all of your snaps and hooks and have them all in one basket. And then if you were frequently doing project with zippers, you could have separating zippers in a basket all by themselves, or you could keep all of your zippers, invisible zippers and separating zippers together depending on how many you have. If you had several drawers to work with and you had a lot of supplies, you could have one section that was just different types of zippers divided into different baskets if you worked with a lot of different styles. For example, you could have metal teeth separating zippers that are 5-inch long in one basket by themselves, and then 6-inch separating zippers in another basket, invisible zippers in their own basket, and then just standard closed end zippers in another basket as well. Now if we're working with another basket, you could also bring in a bunch of ribbons, and you could line them up all the way down the row if you worked with ribbon frequently, or just have it in there. It's a nice way to keep it grouped together and easy to access. Another thing you could use this size basket for is all of your elastics. So if you have elastics in packages, or if you have elastics that you've bought by the yard, you could group them together and tie around the edge to create bundles and keep those in these little baskets as well. And if you have larger rolls and you buy your elastic in bulk, they could fit nicely next to the baskets in a drawer, keeping it all organized. So as you can see, there are multiple configurations for a drawer like this, and depending on what you want to store, notions specifically, or sewing tools, or a mix of sewing and office supplies, you can configure it however it works best for you. So I hope this has given you a bunch of ideas to go try this out in your own sewing space. Now let's take a look at countertop or visible storage. So this is my preferred method. I actually like to have things out in the open, just grouped together and organized nicely. So in front of us right here, I have this acrylic drawer unit. It has 5 drawers, and it opens on the top to access this top section. Each section is just a few inches, so they're very shallow depth, and it allows me to store a lot of things that I can see quickly at a glance. And as long as I'm good at keeping things in the right drawers, it's very easy for me to find any time that I need them. Now let's take a little bit closer look at how I've set up and used this acrylic drawer unit. So on this top section, you can see it opens from the top, and I have a lot of extra threads that I've gotten that don't fit on my thread rack, and they're not used yet. So I have these in here. It looks pretty from the top if they're stored following the rainbow colors or some sort of method like that. It looks great through the top of this container, so it provides visual interest, but it's also an organization tool. Then you can see as I open the drawers, in this first one I store all kinds of pins. So I have pins and sewing machine needles, replacement blades for my cutting tool, things like that. I have extra seam gauges, extra pins in the back, seam rippers, all of that. So that's kind of in here. I have them spread out. It's a little bit messy, but at least I know if I'm looking for pins or needles, I'm going to find them in this drawer as long as I put them back when I'm done using them. Then in this drawer, you can see I have lots of different styles of tapes. I have my Steam-A-Seam and fusible tapes. I have regular Scotch tape. I have double stick permanent or removable tapes, my quilter's tapes, measuring tapes, extra little scissors, my marking tools, I also have some design tape, the washi tape, and then some of my design tools in here in the back. Then in this next drawer, I've stored all kinds of buttons and closures. So I have buttons in bags, buttons in containers, my larger rolls of hook and loop tape in a variety of colors, and then the smaller ready-to-use pieces are right in the front. Then as we move down, I have a little bit of a mix of things in here. I do have some zippers on the side, and then I have some of the embellishment type tools, embroidery hoops, paint brushes, some tracing paper, and things that I might want for doing the embroidery work. And then down at the very bottom in this unit, I have lots of beads and beading tools. I have a lot of smaller containers down in here. So you can see that I have them divided into little containers that have tiny little screw-on lids. So these all open, and I have stored inside little jump rings or beads. I have a couple sizes of container. This one is a little bit smaller and a little bit taller. So these all fit down in here, and it stays nicely organized because it keeps all of the beads separate. This is really great for small things. So if you just want to keep them separated from each other so you don't have a drawer of everything all mixed together, it's a nice way to keep things separated, organized, but visible at the same time. Now you can also see I have containers next to this acrylic drawer unit, and these are the types of containers I like to have up on my countertops, desk, or shelves so that I can see the items that I have, yet they're contained into groupings. So I like to use things like glass jars. You can see those here where I have buttons in this glass jar, and then I also have used one to contain spools of ribbon. Now I also use bin style containers in different sizes to keep things grouped together. So you can see I have all of these smaller pieces of elastic in this one container. I can use one to hold items like a glue gun and glue sticks and supplies that fit that same theme. I have a larger container where I've stored other types of elastic, larger quantities and larger sizes. And then I have some trims that I've put together inside glass jars and in these bin style containers. I can also use the containers to hold different types of painting tools, paint pens, things like that, grouped into groupings in these little desktop containers. And then it's also good to have desktop storage for things like scissors and cutting tools. So you could keep those in a container on your desk. You could have them hanging on a wall unit that holds containers, or they could be stored in your drawers. So I really just encourage you to try out some different types of storage and just take note of what works best for you. But remember, the most important thing, and this is a reminder to myself as well, is to put things away when you're finished. As long as things go back into their containers and drawers, you'll be able to find them quick and easily every time you're working on a project.